Hey there, guys. As you probably recall, a couple days ago, I talked a little bit about the City series in Chicago in 1903, the one that Retrosheet missed. I'm telling you, Retrosheet missed more than just that series. There were a number of exhibition series in 1903. And so I didn't really do much research. Instead, I thought, I'm just going to open up the newspaper of one of these multi-team cities, and I'm sure that I'll find something. And I found something, but I found something that is a little bit unusual and is not necessarily what I expected. So we'll go ahead and take a look here. I opened up, of course, what I would have expected, or what I should be expected to open up. Open up the evening edition of the New York World. New York World in 1903 was a little bit lesser of a paper than it was as a daily in 1901. 1900, and definitely not as good as it was in the 1890s, but it still had its moments. By the time you get to 1908, a lot of the sensationalist news is kind of gone, and it's not as much fun. I mean, look at this: child poisons her playmates. Incredible stuff, and kind of wonder what was really happening here. Yeah, interesting stuff. Anyway, but we will stop worrying about the poisoned crackers that were poisoned with arsenic. What were they doing in 1903? What we do want to focus on here is the baseball. So here's the Pirate Red Sox World Series game. This is the fourth game. Pirates win 5-4, despite Boston scoring 3 runs in the top of the 9th inning. Notice here again, this is what I was talking about yesterday. You'll see the home team that was listed up at top, and also this is that variant of Pittsburgh without an H. Now, the thing, though, that is most interesting to me is this right here, right? So the Philadelphia teams were playing against each other in their own series. There's that Chicago series that we were just talking about. Cincinnati and Cleveland had a series that apparently was being played in Columbus for some reason or other. And then in St. Louis, the National American League teams played against each other as well. And so that leaves what? That leaves the New York teams, basically, right? And then otherwise it leaves like Detroit and whoever the National League equivalent would be, probably Brooklyn, right? So, or the Boston Doves, or, whatever. There are a couple of teams that are left out here, but, there's not really that much that's kind of left out of the baseball world in 1903. I mean, generally, you're seeing a lot of these different series involving teams that are very, very close in geographic proximity to each other. But not New York at all. And interesting to see. So the Giants, when we look around here, the New York Giants were actually playing a series of exhibition games in October. So once again, I mean, this idea that, the season is over and so everybody just goes home was not entirely the case. I don't know exactly how it worked before 1903 and before the peace was signed between the American and National Leagues. But I do know that there were a whole ton of exhibition games that would take place between other games, in part to help out the team, or to help out these small teams in nearby towns. In part, I think, to try to do scouting to see if they have any players that are worth taking on, and also in part to sort of spread the word about the major league team and allow them to be seen by an audience that couldn't see them before. This is the sort of thing that we tend to forget about, right? I mean, if you're going to replay one of these seasons and you want to do it accurately, you really do have to adjust for some of this and all of the exhibition games and all the stuff that goes on, instead of just pretending that it doesn't happen. And I don't know of any game that really does that or has it set up, because most people don't realize that this is a thing. I'm going to take a quick look over here and see if we don't have any other interesting things going on. Picture of Honus Wagner, Bill Kennedy, and Fred Clark. These three Pittsburgh National League players who are the mainstays of the Smoky City team and fight for the championship with the Boston American Leaguers. And so there you have it. This sports page is not quite as good as they were just a couple of years earlier for the New York World. You can see that, the introduction of photographs here is kind of what makes it a little bit more pulled back and not quite as adventurous and not quite as interesting, right? We can look just for fun over here at 1900. We'll just pick, October 1st. I'm pretty sure the National League season wasn't done yet. And take a look. Well, okay, you do have a whole bunch of photographs there. But as you can see, it's a totally different type of page and different layout. And there you go, Brooklyn's win. Brooklyn played against Boston in a game that was called early, 5-0, and here was the Giants game at the Polo Grounds, 5-2. And then since this was the evening paper, the St. Louis-Chicago game wasn't quite done yet. But you can see the difference, right? I do like the New York World much better when it comes to earlier seasons. And we can look at just something at random here. Let's see if we can find any other interesting versions of the World. I mean, we could look at like 1897. I don't know. I haven't even looked at any of this stuff, and just sort of see what we come up with. Yeah, there's not much actual baseball news. How about that? Let's see if we can find actual sporting news here in the New York World proper in 1897. Let's see if we can find anything that's interesting here. Here you go. Boston, the greatest of all ball teams. This is actually quite interesting. A look at the championship clubs for every single season. And this is the pennant race of 1897, which is also pretty fascinating. So Boston was barely on top of Baltimore, and I'm not quite sure how many more games were left to play. I don't know as much about 1897 as some of the 20th century seasons. John McGraw was hitting leadoff for the Orioles back then. Interesting stuff. And the interesting thing is, so you get all this coverage of Boston, Baltimore. Here's the coverage of the New York Giants game. Attendance 1,000, so they were still able to get 1,000 people there to show up at the Polo Grounds, despite having a really poor game and poor team. Here's a little bit of early football without helmets, so pretty cool stuff. Anyway, there you have it, and there you go. But once again, the thing to sort of keep in mind when we talk about this, when we think about especially 1903, but some of these other early seasons, is that these big postseason exhibition series that were really, really big news at the time have gone completely missing in the public consciousness, and most of us don't think about it, don't know anything about it. And we'd be pretty surprised to know that it existed and know that, there was a lot of interesting stuff that was going on that people really cared about at the time, right? So there you have it. I hate to say it this way, but I've always, or I felt as I've done this research, I felt like, baseball history over time has become a little bit whitewashed. We tend to focus so much on the statistical sides of things and on like what the official record says that we tend to really discount stuff that's interesting, that involves interesting stories about how things really were for the players and what it was really like, right? And it's because we, care only about the official games that count in the official standings, even though some of these other games were just as intense and just as important, not just to the fans, but to the players as well. So anyway, there you have it. We'll leave it there, and I will talk with you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.